Hello, everybody. I'm really excited for this podcast today. This is a recent find for me, but our missions and our beliefs align so much, so I know it's going to be a good one. I have Kasie on from Gather the Scattered podcast, and she helps you transition to new communities and find your people along the way, which is like perfection to what we talk about here. So, Kasie, thanks for being here and joining us today.
Yes, thank you. I'm so excited to be here. So thank you for inviting me on.
Yeah. And you're also a veteran and a military spouse, and you have a lot of experience moving to new locations. I know we all understand that every few years we're moving around and having to start over again. So can you tell us a little bit about your background, kind of your army days and how many times you've moved, that kind of stuff?
Oh, sure. So I, I never expected the military to even be in my life. I never expected that. I was in college and I had this dream job to work for law enforcement one day, and I didn't really know how to get there. So I went to a career fair one day while I was in college, and this person told me, "Hey, if you want to be a part of this organization, you need to either join the local police department or you need to join the military." And I was like, "Okay, all right, the military pay for my will pay for my school, so I think that's going to be my option." So I called a recruiter and got signed up, and it was a real big shock to my family.
Yeah.
Um, for expecting that, there were some non-supporters in my family that were not very excited about me doing that, but I just felt very led to go into that. And so and it really paid off. My plan paid off. I did 6 years as Army National Guard. And so I was in chemical. So if anybody knows, if you say chemical, I was the person in the gas mask. I got gas so many times than probably I can count. It was the worst.
Yeah.
But I'm sure you've probably experienced that too.
We do something similar, like on ships, it's like OC spray. I thankfully was like, I'll just go on watch. I'm gonna not do that. I like got out of it somehow. I don't know how, but I have.
Right? I don't recommend it. It's really not
Yeah,
that. You can say that you've not done that and still be just as cool. So,
right.
so that it was just a really it all things really aligned for me. And I joined the military like I said I was going to do. I did end up working for the organization that I wanted to, and so I worked for that organization for 10 years. And and so I finished my National Guard stuff. My husband is actually active duty, so our story is very interesting, and hopefully it's making sense. But in 2017, um my husband was working for a civilian company, and the work shift was just a little too much for our new family. And so we decided that we would pray for something to come along, and we got an email about a notification and notify us about a program called to active duty. So if you were in the National Guard, you could, and you were in a specific rank, and if you were in a specific job or MOS, and you met that criteria, then you could transfer from the National Guard to active duty. So we don't really have like a traditional, we didn't go in active duty, you know,
Yeah.
at first. So it was kind of a little later in life. And so, but so in 2017, I was not expecting him to say, "Hey, let's go active duty. This will be the answer." Like this is it. And so, but thankfully, my job at the time told me, "Hey, we will transfer you to each time your husband transfers, we will find you an assignment to go to." And so that for me really checked the box and answered a lot of things for me. I never expected to move out of Alabama. That was never part of the plan. It wasn't a desire that I had. And so, but I will tell you, as soon as I got to the first duty station, we still didn't live like the typical active duty life. We got stationed closer to where I was working. So if he deployed, then I can be close to everything, including schools, job. I can be close to it all, so that, in case that I needed to get around easier, that was just the better option. So we all have always lived an hour outside of the base nearly. And but what I found there is it wasn't like the community I came from. The community I came from is kind of it's everybody kind of knows everybody a little bit, but we're it's all family. Everybody's from there. It's not transient. There's really not a ton of jobs there that bring a lot of people outside of, of our hometown. But I moved to a new community in North Carolina, and I don't know what it was, but I think that there was such a sense of everyone is not from here that
Hmm.
made everybody closer
Yeah.
because everybody was seeking community. Everybody was looking for friends. Everybody was looking for that family. We're looking for those people who would attend their kids' sporting events, their birthday parties, and just things that when you normally have a support network around you. You're really looking for those people. And I just feel like each duty station that we moved to, so we moved to North Carolina, we went to South Carolina, and now we're in Georgia. We just keep coming down. It must be Florida next. But we have been able to find those people that we knew immediately were there for the right reasons, and they were there to support us and, just really support each other.
Yeah, that is so good. It's so great to hear like non-traditional military stories because I think a lot of people, so I'm in recruiting right now, and I
Oh,
think a lot of people think that, you have to go to the recruiting office, you sign a piece of paper, and then you're off to boot camp, and like that's the only way to do it. And it's not. There are so many other options and different programs and stuff. And I think it's great that to share that, but also great that you guys are just open to like, new opportunities and trying something new. And like open to moving. Another thing that I have found, being a reservist for a while now, I was active duty and then I went reserves, but in reserves, you tend to like live where you live and then you kind of go help the Navy wherever and whenever they need it, but you live in the same place. And having been active duty before, I was under the mindset that everybody is just like my body and soul is the Navy's for the next 20 years, and wherever they tell me to go, I will go. And I assumed that everybody was that way, and that's not the
yeah,
case. Like so many people love where they live and they never want to leave. And
right,
they were born and raised in the same hometown. And like, that's not my experience. I've
right.
just moved a lot and which I enjoy. So it's interesting talking to people that are like dead set on like, I'm never leaving this town, but I still want to do the military thing. And like, it's possible, but it's a little bit difficult. But I love that you were open to moving away from your hometown too, to like go pursue things because that's not everybody's situation. A lot of times people are very firm and like, if I can't do it here, I'm just not going to do it. And to me, I think it just is kind of like you're closed off or you've built this wall to like adventure or other opportunities. And like I personally don't live that way. So it's interesting to hear from somebody that's like born and raised in one place, thought you'd be there forever, but you were open to new experiences. And like think of all the people that you have met along the way that you wouldn't have if you never took that step.
That is something that I think that I will take away. Just what you said just then is something I will take away. That will be one of the biggest takeaways for me. Is all the people that I've met that I couldn't imagine not in my life. It's I think I care so deeply about people, and I know you do too. Serving in the military, you have to have a heart for people. You know,
Yeah.
a servant's role. And my husband and I have both been in public service positions. And, my husband was in the National Guard for 13 years before he went active duty. So just wild. But you just have to if you have an open heart and if you have a heart for people in general, it will make this job easier. And I know that's not for I know it's not for everybody, but this lifestyle, you have to have a little bit of it because it makes it easier. And I don't ever want to miss out on an opportunity to have somebody in my life that was supposed to be there. And I don't want to dismiss that on accident.
Yeah. Gosh, that's so good. So true. Oh my goodness. Great. I was looking at some of your things online and I loved you shared something that said essentially like you have a lot of people that will like help you physically move your things and like find a house and a realtor and all that kind of stuff. But there's no one to help you immediately find community, which I was like such a light bulb aha moment. That's so true, especially when you are moving regularly. It's like there's nobody there that's like, I'm your personal tour guide and I'm going to introduce you to all these people. So, how do you suggest someone like gets to know people and find a new community after they have moved?
I think you really just have to, this is going to sound weird, but I personally just make a list, a massive list of things that either I want to try or I know that there is going to be a group of people are where a group of people are going to be, because you have to go where the people are. If you want to build community, you want to find your community, you want to find your people, you have to go where the people are. Somebody told me that one day. They said, I invited them to go somewhere. And so they're like, Kasie, you like to go where the people are, and I don't. And so that person was just more introverted than I was, and that's okay. And but I appreciated her saying that, because I was like, oh, that really makes a lot of sense. And I think that that's why I have such a heart and a mission for that, is, and for other people, is because you just have to go where the people are. So make a massive list of some places where that's like church, there's a local pickleball group together, there's a running group, whatever like your interests are, and then kind of do it like a process of elimination, because the more you're exposed to things, the more likely you're going to find where you want to be and what people that really make you feel good. It's not about finding, it's not about quantity, really. It's about quality. It's about the people who really make you feel good, and you'll know it. And there's going to be groups that you're like, oh, okay, that's not really for me. And that's okay. And I think that you just have to give yourself permission. People have to give themselves permission to be okay with that, you know?
Yeah, for sure. That's really great. I feel like I hear that a lot of like, oh, you have to like know what you're into and then like go to those places. But literally writing it down, I feel like would be so key. And probably people maybe skip that step. They just kind of have a mental list of like, oh, these are the things that I want to go try or do. But like writing it down and maybe referring back to it and being like, oh, I've gone twice to this thing and it just hasn't felt right. So I'm going to take it off the list now or whatever. Um, and I love what you said about quality over quantity. And that is something that is really hard for me to do because in so many places that we've lived, we have had a lot of friends and a lot of people in our community. And
Right.
then over the years, and I don't know if it's partially a function of just getting older and more mature and kind of like knowing what you like, but like those groups have gotten smaller and smaller over the years. And sometimes I'm kind of like, oh man, we don't have 20 people showing up anymore. It's like six. This seems, not as good as it was before. And that's not necessarily the case just because the numbers are different. But so that's just like a personal thing I have to try and continually get over. So
I get it. And like, what I think is so great about each place that we've moved, and probably you too, there is something known about that community.
yeah.
So, one we're in now, we're more on a coastal town. And so people are on boats more. People are going shrimping more. People are doing all these different things. And so it's like you can make a list, but also look, open your eyes and your mind about what it is that makes this community so special.
Yeah.
And like we were in North Carolina, a lot of it was there was a big food scene. I was never a big foodie, but I was surrounded by a couple of people that really just enjoyed trying new foods. And I would have never done that if I was not willing to try some of those things. I never tried Thai food. I there was this sandwich, oh my word, a banh mi sandwich. Have you ever had a banh mi sandwich?
No, not that I
Oh,
know of.
it is so good. I can't remember specifically what country specifically does these, but it's so flavorful. It truly is amazing. I'm telling you, it's so good. If you see a banh mi restaurant, you have got to go. But if
Noted.
I wasn't willing to open my heart to that and just to be like, okay, like maybe I'll try that, then it gives you more to talk about too. The more things that you try to involve yourself in, it gives you more to talk about. And then it helps you connect with other people as well.
Yeah, so true. I one time was kind of in this group and we were talking about similar things of like you said, like going where the people go, but also you have to like do things so that you have things to talk about with people or
Yeah.
you have a wider range of things that you can connect with them on. And it's so true. And that could be anything from like reading at different types of books or like listening to different musics or like going to different places, like you're saying. So, you're expanding your experiences so that you can potentially expand your support system in your group because you have more things to talk about and do. That's great. Do you were talking a little bit about like growing up in a non-transient location and living there for a long time and then going to places where it is, and that I couldn't agree more. It's just like instant community. And we've done the opposite. We've gone from like very transient places to places where people have like lived, born, raised, lived, their kids are here, their grandkids are here, and it's like super hard to break into. So, do you have any recommendations for like places that maybe aren't as transient, and people have established friendship groups or support systems, and like how to kind of break into that? Or I don't know, break into it seems a little bit like forceful, but just like, to be welcomed into a community like that.
Yeah. So the good thing, so when we were in North Carolina, that was a more transient area. And then we moved to South Carolina. It was a lot less transient. They were very established, and that they were very established, and they just had their people. We've kind of talked about that before. They had their people, and I am a very social person, and it did feel very hurtful, and I felt kind of a little left out, if you will.
Yeah. Hmm.
um where I'm like, okay, but I'm cool too.
Yeah. I've literally had the exact same thought before. Like, if you just took a chance, you would find out that I'm like really fun to be around.
Exactly. And so I joined a church, and I knew this church was going to be right for me. But here's something I will say. So there was this girl that walked in church one day, and when I started going there, she did not go like that. She wasn't a part of the church at the time. And when she walked in, I was like, I really think that we would be friends. Like, she seems really cool. Like, I feel like we would be really good friends. And so we got to talking. We realized that we had a lot in common, but it took me just going up to her and saying, "Hey, look, I am me." And then we got to know each other. And in that conversation, we realized that we were both military spouses. And it was such a, I'm so thankful that I did that, because she's truly one of my best friends right now. And so what we did, how we took that relationship, is we were like, hey, I am right now, I really want to have someone in my life that will do a Bible study with me. So we decided to meet up at this coffee shop every Tuesday. And let me tell you what, when we we were so on the dot and so persistent with this Tuesday meeting in general, that our husbands were like, "Oh, we can't ask you to do anything on Tuesday." And my sister, "Are you going to Nomad Coffee?" Because and so it was just so known. And so I think the takeaway out of that whole beautiful relationship that we were able to create is that we were consistent and persistent. And because it's hard. It's really hard when everybody else is established, and you have to work at it. It is not going to be, sometimes it's not going to be automatic. You really just have to work at those relations. You just have to work on trying to find those relationships.
Yeah, that's so good. I'm so glad that you found that. And I think too, like I said, like being persistent with it is great. I do think at some point, and I think most people probably figure this out because like you just can tell there's like a vibe where it's like it's never going to happen and I need to move on.
Yes.
Um, and I think I've gotten better about that over the years. Like the
Yeah.
more you have to like reestablish a community, like I'm like, let's go deep,
Yeah.
like 100 leagues under the sea, like instantly. I don't want a mile long 1 inch. I want like 1 inch a mile deep, you know? So if you can't do that, then I'm like, all right, I'm a little bit faster at like, let's move on. You're not my person. I'm gonna go on to the next or whatever. And I do
Yeah.
think you kind of get a feel for that, but you do have to try and be intentional and be persistent. So
You have
um
to try for yourself, because you just, like I've said before, you don't want to miss out on somebody who's supposed to be there in your life, right? In that season and at that moment.
yeah, that's so good. When you are moving around a lot. You end up kind of far from family, far from friends. How are you still staying connected with those people that you have established those like really amazing relationships with? Like more so than just like phone calls and FaceTimes. Are there other things that you're doing to like maintain that connection?
Well, I think sometimes we try to put a timestamp on how long it needs to be before you reach out to somebody. Like if it's
Mm,
like a week, or I haven't talked to this person in a month, or just whatever. I think we put so much pressure on each other on trying to put a specific time on when we need to do that. And so what I've kind of done is just make it can be through text. I mean, you can call, you can FaceTime, but I mean, I know this is probably a lot of people, but even just sneaking in a reel to your people and be like, hey, in something that says, along the lines of like, you're a good mom, or send this to somebody who is a great mom. And sometimes it's really nice to just hear those little things and to just send those little tidbits, because then it can start a conversation. It doesn't have to, we don't have to put so much pressure, but just letting people know that you're thinking about them is I think is just key in general. Is just to let people know that you're thinking about them, even if you're not able to call and text and FaceTime all the time, and scheduling times throughout the year to go see them,
yeah.
and to not let that much time go by. I have a group of friends that we try to see each other a couple times a month. So we go. So we just saw each other last week, and then we're booking a spa day in February. Like, we're putting something on the books. We're committing to something. And I think when you commit to something, it's going to be easier to keep that momentum and that consistency with each other, you know?
Yeah, that's great. I definitely have threads with different friends where it's just like reel after reel after reel. We're not saying anything. We're just sending the reels back and forth or the TikToks or whatever. Like, yeah, you have those people where you're like, yep, this made me think about you. This made me think about you. So it's funny that those are essentially just the whole conversation. So
Just
that's
another
funny.
way of communicating, and just say sometimes what you're feeling, but you haven't. Sometimes it's easier to send that than to just text it, because then
Yeah.
it's odd. It could be awkward or just whatever. So it's easier that somebody else said it. Now you can just kind of just send it, and it kind of takes the pressure off.
Yeah, so true. Um, what is something that your like friends or family, neighbors, people in your community have done for you like during deployments or times when you like really need the support? And like how have they rallied around you during those times?
I tell you what, this one makes me cry every time, and I'm not going to cry today. I'm not going to do that. But when we moved to South Carolina, my husband deployed 7 months after we had moved, and I wasn't really super close with my neighbors at the time. I think we knew each other by name, but you're still just very new, and I didn't want to tell anybody that my husband was deploying. And I don't know why. I just didn't want to tell anybody. And so 3 weeks start going by, and my neighbors had I noticed them start cutting my grass.
Oh,
They started taking out the trash cans for us and doing all these manual labor things that I couldn't that is hard to get to at the time.
when you're
Which
like when you're all on your own, those things are not high on the priority list.
no,
Yeah.
they're really not. And but what I felt like was so beautiful about that is I never told them that he was leaving. And so my neighbor had told me, he said, I just knew. I just knew. I hadn't seen him in 3 weeks, but I just knew. And he said, my mom was a single mom. And I know how hard it is raising children by yourself. And he said, I just felt like I needed to do something. And so it really warmed my heart. And that those neighbors will just have a special place in my heart for my whole life, because they saw a need and they just acted on it. They didn't even ask me. They knew that he was absent, just because they felt that, and they took care of some things that they knew would be heavy on my plate.
That's amazing. Gosh, that's so, so good.
It
And
was
to just do it without asking is that's so amazing. So what great neighbors to have.
They were,
So
and it's
cool.
it made me realize too that patriotism is just truly still very alive. Like people still want to support the military. They want to, just help in different ways. And it was really, they really do have a special place in my heart. I don't even have words for how thankful I am for them.
Yeah, that's awesome. Wow. Okay. Kasie, can you tell us where people can find you to hear more of your Southern accent and all of your wisdom?
I get that a lot. I try to tell people all the time I'm from New York. They do not believe. Uh,
That's hilarious. No, yeah, let's tell everybody where they can listen to Gather the Scattered.
So you can listen to Gather the Scatter podcast on any podcast hosting, wherever you listen to podcasts, you can find Gather the Scattered. Unfortunately, Gather the Scattered was taking on social media. So my social media handle is We Are the Scattered. I think that goes very well together. And so on the podcast, on social media, We Are the Scattered. And I have some other things that are exciting and on the horizon. So I can't wait to share some of those things too. So please follow me, and I would love to connect with anyone and just, chat.
That's awesome. That's great. Yeah, we'll definitely make sure all the links are in the show notes so everybody can find you. And then we're going to talk about these last call questions, and they're just kind of fun party ones. So, first one is, what is the best party you've hosted, or something that you've hosted that you thought went really well?
A wedding shower for my sister. There's something so wonderful. My sister's 9 years younger than me, and I feel like she is like another, like one of my children,
Yeah.
with that much of a gap. It was so, yeah, I really truly love doing that and hosting it, because you're like, we've talked about before, just extending such hospitality to someone that you truly care for and that you love is just, it's just great. So we had, great Southern food, lots of people there to really kind of shower her. So that was definitely one of the most fun, because we had like an outdoor setting, and it was in Mississippi, and we love that area. And so we had an outdoor, we had an indoor area, and I love being able to kind of go back and forth with in a setting like that, instead of just having one area. And so that was just really fun.
Awesome. That sounds great. What is the best community that you've been a part of, and what has made it so great?
I've talked about this before, but when I was in North Carolina, my work community and the community that I lived in was just very open arms. I think that really, truly, if being a part of that area is, everybody's looking for connection, and it just really, and I felt that. I felt that everybody really wanted to be there. Everybody was excited to be there, and I think whenever you feel that and everybody else feels that, you can just kind of feed off of it.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, last one here. What is your best party hosting tip?
So my best party hosting tip is, people are coming to, like, we're hosting for Christmas this year, but anytime anybody comes over, I always just remind myself of a Bible verse. And it basically says that you show hospitality without grumbling. So don't make it about yourself. It's easy to get overwhelmed, but just to make sure that you focus on others through in hosting an event in general is just really important.
Yeah, that's such a good tip and such a good reminder that we all need to have, especially in crazy seasons like the holidays when we're all a little stressed. My husband and I were just talking about it this morning. Like everybody is just really stressed right now, so we have to give everybody a little bit of grace. So, yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
awesome. Well, Cassie, this has been so fun. It's been so great getting to know you better, and I can't wait to listen into your podcast a little bit more. Like I said, it aligns so well with what we talk about here at Conversations with the Hostess. So I'm glad that we were able to have the conversation today. So thank you.
Awesome. I was happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
You're welcome.